The more important part in terms of what you're looking for, in terms of what was Shimer then, what is Shimer now, is that there was a single dining hall.
Okay.
We all ate there. The faculty, in many cases, they all lived in town. It was a small town with fewer people in Mount Carroll than are attending North Central. Mount Carroll had a population of 2,100.
That's right.
And the important thing there was that the faculty, in many cases, were single, and they would eat in the dining hall with us. Or we would have a class that met in the morning. I forget the length of the class. I want to say it was around 2 hours. We had a class that would end at 12:20 or something. And you'd be sitting in class having a debate, and you weren't going to stop. So we just marched into the dining room with the instructor.
Keep going.
And kept going with the conversation.
Oh my
And
goodness.
to me, that was an important part of the environment. So one of the things I heard you asking Peter about before was, so where's liberal arts? What's the value for all of this? And I'm sort of an outlier here. I did not graduate from Shimer. I flunked out. And I'm not going to get into my issues and my attitude, but what I got from Shimer was the mentality. I mean, I walked around a lot of prospective students, and I would talk to the students, talk to the parents, and what I would tell them was that the Shimer program was designed to teach you to think and learn in multiple disciplines. And that to me was the important part. The important part to me, who flunked out and never did well in any of my classes, and I almost flunked out of high school, was that Shimer, which I didn't realize at the time, and I was too young for a lot of this, gave me permission to challenge the system, to ask questions, and to do things.
Yeah.
So I flunked out of college. I am now currently working at a 40,000 student large state university.
What schools are?
I'm at George Mason University in Fairfax, Virginia. And I occasionally teach a class on Intro to College. And one of the things I get across to my students, and I think this is where Shimer helped me, is, and where I think Shimer, and I was discussing this with Stuart the other night, is that the Shimer program prepares you less for the job that you will have when you graduate and more for the jobs you will have later.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Because
That's a very good one.
very few people are going to, I mean, some people have a career and they stay in it forever. My brother, who is 3 years younger than me, went to school, learned to do textile design. When he lost his job or didn't feel like moving to follow the job, and I said, well, he redesigned his house and remodeled, and somebody remodeled. So, well, you're good at this. You're good at space and shapes. Why didn't you go to work for a company that's doing home renovation? No, I don't have the training for that. I've never had that attitude. I have had zero training for any of my jobs. I spent from 1970 through 1979 working in retail, either as a manager or as a buyer or an advertising person. I had no training for this.
Yeah.
I went from that to being a traveling sales rep working on straight commission from 79 to 87. Again, I had no training. In 85, I bought a computer to help me do my business, and I said, oh, this is kind of cool. Now, I'd had exposure to computers. In 63, I wrote a game program in high school.
Really?
And in
Wow.
1985, I bought a computer, helped use it for my business. I was divorced. My son was going to live with me. My second wife said, well, you can't work on the road if you're going to have Jeremy come down with us. So I got a job working in a hospital as their PC person. And I was there from 87 to 2001, during which time we were one of the first hospitals in the country that was not a university hospital to be connected to the internet. Because we got at the university with which we were affiliated, got a grant to connect their teaching hospitals to their library so the residents could do research. And I tried to do that connection, and I contacted the different companies, and I found out that I could connect us directly to the internet for not much more than connecting to their library. So we wound up connecting to the internet. And then I had somebody working for me, and I said, why don't you work with Public Affairs and build a website? So in the early 90s, we were one of the places that did this. I converted us all from being dumb terminals to computers on a network. I had no training. I took one course in computer programming.
Wow.
There you go.
And I
Where did you finish college?
where did I finish? In the 80s, my wife convinced me to go back to school. So I did some courses. Actually, yeah, in the 80s, I went to local community college, took some courses. Then after my son came down to live with us and then moved out back to mommy, my wife had been going to Marymount to get a master's in personnel, whatever we call it.
Is that Marymount in New York, you mean?
No, Marymount in Virginia.
Oh, in Virginia.
And so she was getting an HR degree in a master's, and she was always trying to talk me to go back to school. So she found that they had a non-traditional student program. So I went back and finished. That's where I got my degree. I lost my job in 2001, and I was 30 credits short of a degree. So I wound up leveraging what I learned at Shimer, which is how to learn things, and did 30 credits via CLEP in the beginning of 2001, and finished my degree at Marymount, and then did an MBA at Virginia Tech, and then decided I was bored when I finished the MBA, so I did a PhD where I work at George Mason. So
I like the PhD because you were bored.
Yeah.
I think that's the funniest thing I've heard all
that
weekend.
is the honest
That
truth.
is the funniest thing I've heard all weekend.
That was the honest truth. I had finished my MBA.
Hey.
I was sitting there reading garbage, and I said, "This is boring. I'll go do a PhD."
Of course.
And I did my PhD on Shimer.
Oh, really?
On Shimer?
My PhD is on Shimer.
In what respect?
Yeah.
Exactly what we are discussing here. What is the effect of a Shimer education?
Oh my
Really?
God.
Do you have like the paper or like the dissertation?
All right. Sewer can find it. If you go to mars.gmu.edu, so George Mason University, you should be able to find the website. If you go to the Mars site there, which is their archive, and just do a search for Shimer, there might be one other, but that's their archive of dissertations, and you can read my dissertation.
Awesome.
So I interviewed a dozen people who attended Shimer between 1960 and 1975 while we were in Mount Carroll to find out what the effect was. And people, I'm not unique in doing things. This seems to be a trait among Shimer people. We do things for which we have no job-specific training.
Yeah.
So for example, if you've done any serious research, you typically write a paper, you have to document the author's name and whatever. Well, something else is out there called a DOI, Digital Object Identifier.
Yeah.
DOI was invented by a Shimer graduate.
Really?
Yes.
No, whatever. I'm writing my honors thesis / psych thesis. I'm triple dipping my thesis.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
But every source I have has a
DOI.
DOI.
What is your honors thesis on?
It's basically going to be on how leaders of faith and or spirituality, like whether it's major religions like Christianity, Islam, more spirituality like Buddhism, stuff like that, how they advise people to go through traumatic events. And I specifically want to focus on post-traumatic growth, so it's not just, like I was saying earlier, it's not I want you to be okay, but how do you actually grow from this traumatic experience and stuff. And I wanted to interview trauma patients, but then I learned you need a license for that. So now I'm going to the people who work with trauma patients.
So, this is apparently among Shimer people is doing things. Lori Spiegel was there with you, I believe.
No.
She was there after you?
Yes.
Because I think Lori graduated in '62.
I graduated in '62, but I
I'm
didn't
sure
know.
she was there. Lori Spiegel graduated from Shimer, went to work, for Bell Labs. Now, how do you go from a Shimer pure liberal arts? Shimer was so non-science that if you wanted to go to medical school, you had to go somewhere else to do your lab courses.
Yeah, sounds about right. Yeah.
So here is Lori Spiegel graduating from Shimer, who went to work for Bell Labs, developed whatever she did for them. She then got into electronic music. She is one of the founders of the electronic music field.
Like
Her-
EDM?
Her music, have you seen the movie Hunger Games?
Yeah.
That's her music.
So she's doing a lot out
She's,
here.
she's really famous. She's really
Oh my
famous.
goodness.
Her music is on the golden CD on the Voyager spacecraft.
She's really famous.
Oh, but spacecraft that like is
It's
just
just going
just
forever.
out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Her music's on the golden CD. So this is what Shimer turns out. And one of the things that I think I heard talk about was your talk about people lecturing to a class. So one of the people I interviewed for my dissertation, and I can't name the person, I can't name the company, went to work for a large electronics company and was in a meeting with a bunch of people, including the founder, owner of the company that the company is named after.
Yeah.
And there was a discussion and they were trying to solve a problem. And this Shimer grad came up with a solution to the problem. And what this Shimer grad told me in the when I interviewed him was that the owner of the company turned to the group and pointed to them and said, "This is the difference. You have been taught, he has been educated." And I just thought that was a really great description of what Shimer does. So to me, it is where I feel empowered by having gone to Shimer, despite the fact that I did graduate and did poorly while I was there. What it taught me was the idea that I could do things.
I love the fact that you flunked out and it had such an effect on you. That's my
Yeah.
favorite part. Along with the PhD because you were bored. Those are, I will carry that home.
That's what you're gonna remember from this
That's
day.
exactly. I'll remember that forever. I'll remember that forever.
So I think if if this was the people who are watching this, to me the thing that you get from Shimer is, as I said, I talk to the prospective students, is you learn to think and function in different disciplines. And as I tell my students in the class that the Intro to College course is, look back, how many jobs did you have? Not how many jobs did you have, how many jobs did your grandparents have? Odds are they stayed in one job for their entire life. Your parents may have changed jobs once or twice, but they pretty much stayed in the same career. People graduating from college today are going, first off, you're going to live longer.
Yep.
You're going to work longer. When Peter graduated from Shimer in '62, it was expected that you would retire when you were 65 if you didn't die before
Exactly.
that. They've changed things. I am still working at 75.
Wow.
And I think the important part is you're going to live longer, you are going to work longer because it is boring to be retired and not doing anything.
No, it's
Yep.
not at all.
You're like, I'm living
You're
the
keeping
dream.
yourself busy, you're doing something else.
Well,
You're writing.
when you retire, you don't do nothing.
Right, you don't do nothing right.
Yeah.
So to me it is the importance of preparing yourself to be able to not just find the next job, but to find and succeed in the next career. And that to me is what the Shimer program prepares you to do. Because you never know, you never know what you're going to have to do, and there are so many pieces in, and this is what helps you stand out. Like, I'm in the DC area, the students in my college go on to work for consulting companies.
Yeah.
And one of the things I tell them is, if all you're going to do is work for McKinsey or Deloitte or whatever, and you go in to solve the problem, you'll have a job.
Yeah.
But you're not going to grow. You're going to grow by being on site, on a job, working for a consultant for this company. And not just doing what you were brought in to do, but looking at things and finding a problem that they haven't identified that you can solve and your company can solve.
Yeah.
And that's how you get more money, and you get more responsibility, and you get to grow with the company. And that to me is what Shimer helps, is you learn. I mean, one of the things that to me typifies Shimer, and Shimer back when Peter and I were there, besides we took 3 courses a semester, and there were basically, you took 4 courses in natural sciences, 4 courses in humanities, 4 courses in social sciences, and then they had comprehensive exams that would roll up all 4 courses in those sequences, as well as combining them. And one of the comps they had was an analysis comp that rolled up social sciences 1, which was basically studying humans. So we read Margaret Mead, Growing Up in New Guinea, Ruth Benedict, Patterns of Culture.
Yep, I read that one.
Is that still going around?
That's still going around,
Oh, my.
yep. Still reading it.
Still reading it, right.
Oh my.
So we had to, that was one course. Another course was Humanities 1, which was combining art and music theory and appreciation.
Yep.
And it was Humanities 2, which was literature analysis. So for the comp, one of the things they had us do was to study the painting Botticelli's Birth of Venus.
Yep. Yep.
And then they had us read Lord of the Flies.
Interesting.
And then we also had to listen to Shostakovich's Fifth. One of the questions and this goes back, I took this in December of 1966, and it has stuck in my brain ever since. One of the questions was, a group of students of Boy Scouts in Chicago's South Side donated a copy of Botticelli's Birth of Venus to the local library. They invited William Goldman to give a dedication speech, and he accepted and announced that his topic would be, "Is world peace possible?" The last week before this happens, William Goldman discovers he can't make it. The students come walking into your office carrying a copy of Lord of the Flies, which of course you studied assiduously for your Shimer comp,
Of course.
and ask you to give the speech. 1 hour speech, "Is world peace possible?" Lord of the Flies, and Botticelli's Birth of Venus.
Oh my goodness.
That's Shimer. That is Shimer
Oh my.
College.
Oh my.
Yeah, and that will prepare you for a lot of things, because, I mean, there are a lot of instances where you'll get thrown into something,
Right,
and people are like, "In perform."
right. And this to me is what typifies the Shimer experience. It's the fact that you and I can sit here, and you've read the same books that I did, that Peter did. We can discuss these things. We can recognize their relevance. And to me, this is, Shimer number 1 prepares you for life. Shimer number 2 creates a community.
Yeah.
And we have groups on Facebook with, people post on it. So somebody who graduated, Ron Partridge, who was there with Peter,
He was.
and Ron is now an Episcopal priest in England, posts pictures and posts discussions of his family, and people who were there graduated from Shimer and I in Chicago were there, people who were at Shimer in Waukegan, and we all, not that we discussed academic things, but we all have this connection that we were all went through the same program, the same experiences.
That's right. Over time.
Right. And so to me, it's Shimer is preparation, Shimer is a community.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see that disappear, and I don't want to see students not want to do this and feel they need to go to a STEM program to become a computer programmer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with that, I'll shut up.
No, that was...
No, you were on camera.
I was gonna say, you're doing
That was
great.
all on camera. I hope
Right.
that was good.
Yeah.
It was all on camera.
Yeah, I wanted to mention one thing, and this is just only because I'm a nerd, and I just learned it, and it applies so well.
You just learned you're a nerd?
Huh?
You just learned that you're a nerd?
Well, no. No, I've been knew that I was a nerd. But in one of my psychology classes, we're talking about the idea of latent learning, and it's basically just this idea that we learn things all the time, but sometimes that learning can't be demonstrated until you're required to perform. Mm-hmm. And I feel like Shimer is latent learning. Like, you're doing this thing,
That's
and
good. I like that.
yeah, and you're like, well, why am I doing it? How's it going to help me in the job world? All this and that. And then one day you're in a room with a bunch of people and you need to like, you know, create a new idea to solve a problem, and all of a sudden that Shimer kicks in because you're required to perform.
Yeah.
And so all this stuff that you've been learning perhaps unconsciously is now consciously being pulled out to use.
What's more important, what's more important than that is that it's not just what you're learning in the classes. It's that you're learning the idea that you need to pay attention to all of the things that are going on, because you never know. You never know when you learn something in the environment that it's not going to come into play later.
Yeah.
I was once asked when I worked at the hospital to solve, I just started there like a month before. I was dragged into a meeting with the whole bunch of like the VP for finance and everything else. And they said, we have to raise our prices. And we can't raise a price on any single item above $999.99. And the increase we want to do is going to raise the price on the ICU over $1,000, and our system won't take that. How do we do this?
Yeah.
And here I am, this is my first job in IT. I've been there for a whole whopping month. I've never, no idea on hospitals. And I sat there and I go, okay, you're in the ICU. What do you do in the ICU? You sit in the bed, but you're also being monitored.
Yep.
So why don't you charge 2 charges for being in the ICU? One for the bed and one for a monitoring charge. And they're all sitting there like, oh my God, that's great. So, you know, it's learning to be aware of your environment and how things are around you and applying it. So it's, to me, Shimer is keep your brain open, keep your ears open, keep your eyes open for everything that goes on.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's good.